Here we go, day one of the Cheltenham Festival is fast approaching, and it's time to give you my nap for day one, which actually comes in the Super in the first race. The pressure will be on. Hopefully we'll get off to a winning start, and the selection is going to be the Willie Mullins trained, not Facile Vega, but Il Ete Toms, who I think is way overpriced at 13-2. He's a solid each way bet. So we'll get into the reasoning, and we'll start off with Facile Vega, who I think is very beatable in this. I always held the opinion that something was going to beat him this season. I just didn't know what, and I finally come down with Il Ete Toms as the horse, which is going to take the throne away from last season's champion bumper winner, who did win it impressively in heavy ground. He's had 2 hurdle starts where he's won. I don't think he was given he definitely wasn't given a race in the first one. There was only one horse that wanted to win that day, and that was Facile Vega at 1-14. Now, he did what he was kind of expected to do. He jumped well enough out in front. It was a decent hurdles debut, but I think the next day at Leopardstown over Christmas, he did beat my selection, Il Ete Toms, but I don't think Il Ete Toms was given that much of a chance. It was another Willie Mullins glorified schooling race. Facile Vega made all. Well, he did actually make all after the first. Il Ete Toms, my selection, did jump out in front and made a horrendous mistake at the first. And he always does this. He's always terrible at the first hurdle. If this race was in France where they go jump a hurdle before, he'd absolutely win the first. But the first hurdle, he just seems to not know what he's doing. He's slow, he makes an awkward shape, and he's done it in his last few starts. I hope he doesn't do that this time, but he probably will. But that might not be a bad thing with a strong pace that'll be likely on display. But Facile Vega over Christmas, I think Il Ete Toms did cruise upside with turning into the straight at Leopardstown, and I think Danny Mullins spent half the straight looking around to see if anything was behind him. He did it about twice, and you just think that they wanted to get another easy race into Facile Vega, and he did quick and clear eventually, but Paul Townend was always keeping him up to his work. Danny Mullins had a very short-lived effort after the last, and then he kind of dropped his hands and let this horse finish second, well clear of the rest of the Mashrow Diamond, was 5 lengths back in third. He was given even less of a chance than Il Ete Toms was by Patrick Mullins. He was well out the back and stayed on for third. So I think Facile Vega, even though he won that day, wasn't the most impressive of all time. Then over Christmas, he got taken on for the lead. You can use that as an excuse. You can say whatever you want, really. He was beaten at the second last. Horses that go off too fast usually are tailing back and stopping late on. They still had a good 4 furlongs to run when this horse was beaten. That's not due to the pace, I don't think. There was definitely a problem. He was lame after the race. That is another excuse as well. It is a short turnaround, and connections are positive about this horse, which is something worth noting, but I do not give this horse much of a chance. Even on his best form, if he's 100% and even improves again, I think Il Ete Toms will maybe not beat him, but will be right up there towards the last and give him a pretty decent scare on the run-in. So that's Facile Vega. He's got an official rating of 153 by the English handicapper, by the way. Next up, Marine National, who's got a mark of 147. He does have lots to find. There is potential that he can do it, but I've been looking at some of the quotes from Barry Connell, and he's been saying there's a certainty, get the double on with Goodland and everything. If you look at his comments before the Royal Bond, he said, we're going to run in the Royal Bond, and then we're going to go to the Dublin Racing Festival, maybe even have a race after the Royal Bond and before the Dublin Racing Festival. But you just think because he won the Royal Bond, he won a Grade 1, I don't know if Barry Connell just wants to get a live chance and take him to the Supreme with an unbeaten record and a chance of getting his first festival winner as a trainer, because all the vibes were after the Royal Bond he was going to get another few runs before the festival. He's coming into this fresh, which the stats isn't good. I mean, I know not many horses do come into the Supreme after this long of a break. It is unconventional, but the stats also say that you don't want to be doing this. So I've got a question mark about this horse, and if you put Il Ete Toms in the Royal Bond, I think he wins it pretty comfortably, to be honest. And I don't think Marine National can do what Il Ete Toms did at the Dublin Racing Festival. So I think Marine National, especially with a £5 claimer, however good he is, he's not as good as some of the jockeys that will be kind of the Paul Townends, the Danny Mullins is, who will be on Alette Toms. So that is a negative as well. He does get on with a horse, but you're being silly if you think having a £5 claimer on is as good as one of the top jockeys over jumps. So I think that's a negative as well. I think he could go and win this at 4-1, but I will definitely be avoiding him on the day. Now we get down to some more Willie Mullins horses which probably weren't running. Pere Pass, he's 5-1. Gaelic Warrior at 8-1. They're both looking to be going to the Ballymore over 2.5 miles. And then we get to Alette Toms, who's a 13-2 shot, and he brings the best form to the race. He won a Grade 1 by nearly 10 lengths, and he won it easily by nearly 10 lengths as too. He did make mistakes. He was keen early on, and if he doesn't make mistakes, then he's not keen. I think he'll win this by a good few lengths, to be totally honest. But this horse has had enough experience to iron them issues out. I think he just is a free-going sort. The hood will be on, and it is slightly more of a sharper trip this than the Triumph which you ran in last year at the festival over 2 mile 1 furlong, and I think they will go a faster gallop as well. There was dawdling early on in the Triumph last year. He was ridiculously keen up until and even after the first hurdle or two. So I think this test will suit him more. I think there'll be a stronger pace on as well. And even if you take Vassal Vega out of the equation, the last day, be in the pocket by 10 lengths, who's got an official rating of 137, beat Dark Raven by 10 lengths as well. He just had the one hurdle start, but did have a big reputation as well. An Irish Point, I don't think he performed, but he was well beaten and he was cooked. He was about 15 lengths off them with 4 to jump. He just couldn't lay up with the early pace at all. So even if you take out Vassal Vega, the form is strong. And if you look at some of the other horses, I think High Definition at 12-1, everyone's kind of latched onto him, and you can see why. He's definitely got the ability. He definitely, well, if it was a flat race, he'd be a very short price to win this. Some of his form, if you look at some of the runs at the Coraway, was second in Group 2s, Group 3s, and he ran with credit in Group 1s as well. And he was once upon a time one of the horses that might have gone and won a derby. He had that much ability. So if he can take to hurdling, then he would have a decent chance. I think he does make a few too many mistakes, but it's one of them horses there. If you get your free bets, if you get your money back as cash with all the bookmakers for the Supreme, I think that's the horse you've got to put it on High Definition. But Alette Toms will be my main bet, and if he doesn't win, I think he's got a rock solid chance of placing. I find it hard to find 3 horses that could beat him. Look, Vassal Vega could beat him, Marine National could beat him, but I think both of them have to go and prove themselves. Alette Toms is solid. He's run well at the festival before, and I think he's got everything going for him, and his performance at Leopardstown on his last run was probably the best piece of form we've seen out of any of these horses all season long. So Alette Toms at 13-2 will be my nap for day 1. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There'll be plenty more Cheltenham videos coming your way very soon, and comment your nap down below as well. Who is going to take all the beating on day 1 at the festival? Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next time for some more Cheltenham videos.